Editing video, it's a lot like baking. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a lot of, how does that taste? But editing takes time. So how do you make sure your video will be bellissimo without having to work for so long that you have to skip dinner or breakfast the next day? Well, just like a great chef, you need a recipe, a secret recipe with shortcuts. See, without a recipe, you'll never really know what you're doing. So you're all but guaranteed to have a bad day slaving over a hot laptop for hours and hours. And for a 10-minute video, that's agony. So this video is all about the recipe, my secret recipe, the fresh ingredients and shortcuts that make editing faster, more enjoyable, and bake you up a fresh, hot out of the oven. Okay, maybe I overbaked that metaphor. See you on the other side. The first and fastest way to edit is not to edit at all. Just take out your phone, point it at your gorgeous face, and hit the record button. Then press another button somewhere and, presto, you got a video on Facebook. Hi, I'm Steve Washer with brainyvideo.com. So for making videos that show off your brand new shoes to your bestie, this is an awesome solution. In fact, that's what the iPhone/Facebook connection was built for. Easy peasy, consumer-centric shoot and upload. The second way of editing is for those of us who have businesses where we want to show up with some degree of professionalism, or we want to use video in a marketing funnel of some kind, or we just like making nice-looking videos. That means we're going to spend a little more time before we hit the upload button. So here's a handy rule of thumb about the time it takes to edit. And this has been the rule ever since John Travolta tried to make disco look cool. 1 hour of editing gets you 1 minute of screen time. So if you have a 10-minute video, clear your day and part of your night. You've just sentenced yourself to 10 hours of hard labor. Oh, but wait. If you want to cut that time down by, say, 85%, that would be just 1.5 hours, more like a little diversion before lunch. Think it can't be done? Oh, grasshopper, think again. And do know that this method of speeding up your editing and making the day go more smoothly doesn't mean that you lose any storytelling power, as long as you have the recipe. Now, the first ingredient for a fast, high-quality edit is to use the one shot. Even if you shot it in 14 takes, it's still the one shot because it's just one shot size and you're just sitting in one spot all the way through the video. Because then all we need to do is line up the shots on the timeline, then change the shot size every time you come to a place where you had to do a retake. Instead of doing something like this, where the shot size never changes, even though you had to do a retake. Instead, you vary the size of the shot greatly, which lends visual interest instead of nausea. Believe me, a lot of your customers can't stand looking at jump cuts. But when you significantly change the shot size, it's no longer a jump cut. It's a cool choice. So the second ingredient is the strategic jump cut. Now, once we've lined up our shots and changed the shot sizes, which should take no more than 30 minutes, we're ready for the third ingredient, B-roll. B-roll is that video you shoot where you don't need audio and you don't need to fit it into the storyline, but it clarifies or entertains or otherwise adds value to the video, but doesn't take hardly any time to add in the edit, so we like B-roll. The way you use it is that when you get to a point in the timeline where you mention, say, that you went down to the coffee shop to write your video script, you can drop in a clip right over the top of the timeline that shows you walking into a coffee shop. That takes about 30 seconds, and 28 of those seconds are deciding what part of the clip to use. Budget about 10 minutes for all your B-roll, and now we're at 40 minutes. Now, B-roll is fun, but there are other ways of telling the story that don't require so much production. You could simply add text. On-screen text clarifies and reinforces your script points. How much text you add and how elaborate the effect, that's up to you. But wall-to-wall text can take a lot of time to lay down. So if you want a big shortcut, maybe to take off another 40 minutes, don't add any text other than a lower third, like this. A lower third adds a touch of class And the lower third is something that goes in every video. So it should already be waiting for the rest of your video right there at the beginning of the timeline. And to get around the fact that you don't have any other text in your video, you can change the shot size to a close-up or even an extreme close-up in the moments where you want to really make a point. Now, there's just one caution about shot size, because clearly I'm making a big deal out of it. If you're shooting with a smaller HD image like 1280 by 720, this technique won't work because the image falls apart once you blow it up past a few percentage points. So the footage needs to be at least 1920 by 1080. The larger the file, the more likely the image can be blown up. But I digress. Now, if you do choose to add text because you can afford those 40 minutes, then create one piece of text like this, then copy and paste it everywhere you want more text and just change the text inside the clip. Otherwise, you can add another 40 minutes. If you want to add some pizzazz by making the text move, get a plugin that drops into your clip and adds a little flair. Like the text growing on the screen or reducing down onto the screen, whatever makes sense to you and looks kind of cool. So make every piece of text part of a template. That's how you turn an 80-minute job into a 40-minute job. So if we added text, we're now at 80 minutes total. Now the same treatment goes for still graphics, which is ingredient number 5. We've, of course, pre-selected them and imported them into the editor, and now they're just waiting for us to lay them into the timeline. Graphics can be a nice addition to the story, and in fact, this is important. Can also be substituted for B-roll. It's good to use 3 to 5 graphics per video. Decide beforehand while you're writing the script where they're going to go. Drop them in, give them a nice motion reveal just like the text, and that takes about 6 minutes. Okay, now we've got our story all laid out with the right cuts created, and we've added some cool but subtle text effect, and we're at 86 minutes. We've got 4 minutes to go. So what's next? Well, we need our animated intro and our call to action at the end, ingredients 6 and 7. We only have to add about 2 minutes to the edit, though, because these should have been laid down before we ever started. That's because you use these elements in just about every video you make. So now we're at 88 minutes. We've got 2 minutes to go, but all that's left is ingredient number 8, music. Wow, music. You know, I've taken hours to find the right music. How are you going to do it in 2 minutes? Well, if you're running short on time, you can always leave it out, but I like putting some at the beginning and at the end, at the very least. And this is how you do it in 2 minutes. Again, it's just some strategy. The beginning music is just an extension of the opening animation music. So that's going to be the same for every video. And remember, that was already sitting on the timeline. You can also bring the music in about 1 minute before the end of the video. And this is a very cool touch as well. And this music can also be the same in every video. So that means that this music, too, can be preset on the timeline. And getting the music to fit takes only another minute. And now we're at 89 minutes. 1 minute to spare. And that bakes up a tasty video that pairs perfectly with a nice lead magnet. But that's another story. As for this one, what we learned is that editing smoothly, swiftly, and painlessly is mostly a matter of strategy and organization. Half the editing is done before you ever open the program. The other half is about what happens in your shoot. Oh, and the third half is all about the little decisions you make when you see the story laid out on the timeline. We did this with the finer touches that make your video taste like it was made by a master chef. Still shots illustrate what we're explaining, while moving text clarifies and adds more visual interest. And don't forget the secret ingredient. As you saw, we can live without the B-roll, but we can't really live without the jump cuts. It's the jump cuts that keep visual interest up without dragging on the edit for 9 more hours. You know, a lot of businesses are starved for understanding how to make videos for the web, and that hunger can lead them to take some pretty dangerous shortcuts. Dangerous because they'll end up with some nasty tasting videos that will lose them a lot of potential viewers who will never come back. Some people will try to do this all with free tools like Windows Movie Maker, and after a few weeks of beating their head against a wall, they'll head to the psychologist's couch to try to understand why they did that. And they might not even notice that their copay was more than the entry-level editing program would have been. But you don't have to worry about that. You can now take some average footage just like mine and use a few simple ingredients and stir them into a nice story. And it doesn't matter how few or how many taste it, that viewer will be your fan for a long time. And here's more good news. If you're watching this at brainyvideo.com, you can check out the listings below for my personal recommendations on editing programs that will help you fly through all the stuff that we just talked about. For saner editing and tasty footage, I'm Steve Washer with brainyvideo.com.